Multiple card find. Here I'm going to give you guys a little bit of tips and sort of routining options for a multiple card find and a way of doing it that I particularly like. Now, the best way in my opinion is the classic fireworks method by Aldo Colombini, who's unfortunately no longer with us. However, this method is still one that is fantastic to use, and it's all using just one technique. You're just pretty much using the spread code to control all the cards to the bottom. The benefit of the Aldo Colombini fireworks method is that the cards are being controlled to the top of the deck. However, with this method, the cards are being controlled to the bottom, so you could subsequently have to control them to the top or subsequently produce them from the bottom in order for the actual revelations to take place. However, I think that this one still has a lot of merit because of the freedom of choice, and the spectators really have no option to think other than the cards are actually where they're being touched. It'll make sense in a little bit. So for this, obviously, we're going to need to do a spread call. Now, I have a bunch of videos on the channel about a spread call. I have a couple tips on Patreon here for the spread call. But if you need more advice, there's also Kostya Kimblett's Roadrunner call. I haven't seen it myself, but all the reviews are rave for that. And as far as just general basics, you could look at the video on YouTube that I put up about the actual spread call itself if you need some tips. Now here we're going to be using that Solomon slider principle, which is going to facilitate the actual taking of the cards. So what that means is that we're going to spread 3 cards here at first, and then we're going to call the 4th card here. And now is when we have the spectators call stop and touch cards. Here we're going to have multiple spectators touch cards. But with the Solomon slider principle, what's happening is that we're going to put the card on top of the card that we have previously called. So notice the Ace of Clubs here is a card that we previously called. This is the card that the spectator touched. So it's going to be a 6 of Hearts that's going to get shown to them. When we are turning this deck back face down, that's when we're going to do the little move, which is just using that slider card to just push this card towards the fingertips. That's all that's happening here. So while the hand's being turned down, that's all that's happening. The spectator assumes that this right here is their card, when in reality, their card is already pushed all the way towards the right of the spread. And we can continue for this as many times as we want. We're showing different spectators, different cards. And notice, by just sliding it over, we have pretty much created the illusion that the spectators' cards are staying exactly where they were touched initially. But they are not. They're actually staying right there behind the initial spread called card. Now, of course, you want to time it correctly so that when you're turning over, remember the larger actions covering the smaller action. You want to make sure that when the cards are actually being turned over, in this sort of way, that you don't see a little bit of a flash there, which is, I think, the weak point of a lot of spread calls that I've seen, is that you see and you notice that very audible card disappearing. You don't want to make the disappearing card trick. You want to make sure that that spread call is covered by the motion of the hand here. So that's another tip there. But pretty much you could control as many cards as you want in this sort of way. The benefit of this is that you have the cards all centrally located in the bottom of the deck. Now, the downside, as I mentioned previous, is that you're going to have to control these cards either to the top or you're going to have to produce them from the bottom of the deck in order to continue with the multiple revelations routine. However, after you've controlled a bunch of cards to the bottom of the deck, you're pretty much jazzing at that point. You could have an established routine that you have the cards produced in a certain way that's the same every time. But I like the jazzability of this trick. So let me just give you a couple revelations that I've used here that are pretty good to use, especially coming directly from the bottom. And anytime you need a card just on top, it's not hard to double undercut that card right to the top of the deck and produce it in whatever way you know to from the top of the deck. However, as far as productions from the bottom, there's this wonderful production by Richard Sanders, which you have a break right there on the bottom card. You do it however it is you want. You're going to swing cut this top packet on top of this card that you have a break under. So you're going to swing cut that packet, and you could forebode the break there. Now you're going to swing cut another packet, keeping a break. When this hand comes in, you're going to switch these 2 packets and put this on top. Now you have one last break that you could swivel cut. You put your thumb underneath there, and you could produce that card from the bottom. So one more time, you get a break. You're swing cutting over this top card here, over this bottom card. You're swing cutting. You're swing cutting one more time, keeping a break. You're switching these 2 last packets and dropping that on top. And then you're swivel cutting, putting it on your thumb, and you have a very nice production of that card. That's a very, that's sort of a flourishy way to produce that card. It looks a little bit like that at speed, but it is one that you could do directly from the bottom. Another one is a classic that where you levitate the card. Now, a good tip on this, which is actually pretty cool, is that if you do it with 2 cards, so if you happen to be able to push 2 cards and do that method, you now have a double lift. So you could produce this 1 card. For example, let's say you've already produced a set of cards here. You produce this 1 card, which is a Queen of Spades, and then you put that face down. You produce this bottom card, and then this next card, you could actually produce that Queen of Spades again, and the spectator is going to say, oh, wait a minute, you already found that card. Then what's this card? Oh, that's the other spectator's card. So you could do a little bit of a transposition there. Now, the cool thing is that you could have a routine established. So you could have a certain amount of cards picked. For example, let's say you have 5 cards picked, and you can already have a routine established with multiple card finds. And you do that every time. But I think the fun of a routine like this is the ability to jazz it up and the ability to come up with things pretty much based on the spot. Again, another benefit of having the bottom card is that you could just call it. You could just cop a card to your pocket, and you don't have to do any sort of extra work. The card's already down there. So all you got to do is just get the break, spread the cards, get a little bit of misdirection, and cop the card to your pocket. And you have a really nice revelation there. Now, a good ending for this would be the classic Larry Jennings routine of finding the card in your pocket. So what you could do there is that, for example, the last 2 cards, you have 1 card control to the bottom here, and then another card control to the top. So you say, oh, I've actually made your card jump to my pocket. And here you reach into your pocket and you grab the card, which is the 3 of hearts, and you go, oh, for the last card, I'm just going to make the deck disappear. And of course, the way we do that is that we just jam all the cards into the pocket. So the way that happens is that we have a nice little cover here from the front. We're going to lift up all the cards. Now, pretty much you're gonna cop all the cards into your pocket. But you're going to do that in the context of a question. So you're going to ask, sir, how many cards are in a regulation deck of playing cards? They're going to look up at you. You say 52. You go, actually, there's 1 card missing because it's inside of my pocket. And there, you're just copying the whole deck. That goes into your pocket. You're taking the bottom card from your pocket and showing it to the spectator and saying, see, this card is actually in my pocket the entire time. I don't know how you did that. And what you say, there are 50. So you're saying now that there are 51 cards. Actually, there's only 1 card. And you can make the deck disappear. And those are the last cards. So the things that are left on the table are all the cards that were revealed. And the deck is completely gone. That's a phenomenal ending and a great way to end any multiple card revelation. And all you need to do is just control 1 card to the bottom, which you already have with this trick, and 1 card on top, and you're ready to go with that. And that's a great standalone trick on its own. But I hope that this gave you a little bit of tips as to doing a multiple card find routine. I think the benefit of those is that it kind of makes you be able to improvise different things on the spot, and also kind of enhances your ability to jazz it up with the spectators. So it's not going to be the same routine every time. So if you're one of these magicians that do table hopping and you have people watch you multiple times, a multiple card find routine could be kind of a good exercise in kind of improvising for the moment. If you want to find a card underneath a bottle, if you want to find a card underneath a pig, you spread, oh, do you see a card anywhere here? No, you don't. Oh, because it's under the piggy. You could improvise depending on the actual context and situation of the environment that you're in. But other than that, it's a great trick. And I hope you guys use it with that little bit of the spread subtlety there, because that's another wonderful little technique to use. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you again for being hot patrons. Felt it when I see you again, when I see